If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. Can you afford to expand? Make that new hire?
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. Welcome to X Squared Radio. I'm your host, Brooks Agnew, coming to you live from an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. This is where the past meets the future. In here, the results are always positive. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We're coming to you from the Truth Frequency Radio Network up in the Pacific Northwest. This is where the truth freaks hang out, and we are not afraid to let our truth freak flag fly. This is the America Free Radio studio in an undisclosed location east of the Appalachian Mountains. Let me begin with my Religion of Peace report. In the last 7 days, the Religion of Peace conducted 31 attacks. In these 31 attacks, they killed 288 innocent people. They injured 200 innocent people. They conducted 2 suicide blasts, and they spread their mayhem over 14 countries. All of this from the Religion of Peace. And in the news, we'll just get started right away. By the way, at 9 o'clock tonight, Eastern Time, we have Tim Huckabee coming on. He is the author of a book about the what he predicts to be the coming World War III, which will involve North Korea. But he aligns with the idea that there's a global syndicate out there that wants to embroil the entire world in war. And there's only one thing standing in between them and their goal, and that is President Trump. And, of course, the armed American. Lots and lots of news to get through before we get finished tonight. So buckle up. Here we go. By the way, thanks, YouTube Live, for streaming this. And thanks for filling up the chat room so quickly. Festus is out there. Terry, Dace, Danny, Ronald, Planet X. Wow, new people. Cheryl, Piper, welcome back. And Kirk. And don't forget about the little square at the bottom with the $sign in it. That is the donate. You can donate anywhere from 99 cents on up. All of that helps. Every single penny of it goes toward the expedition. And more to come on that too at the half hour. I'll let you know some more about that. Hot in the news right now, other than let me pay my respects to Kobe Bryant and his family. It was tweeted out in 2012 that Kobe Bryant would probably die in a helicopter crash. You know, that is not that weird. Just to set all the conspiracy theorists to rest. Celebrities in Los Angeles don't travel much by car. If I'm from LA, I grew up in Santa Monica and Pasadena, and the traffic today is not traffic. It's like a parking lot. To get across Santa Monica, just Santa Monica takes 45 minutes. Celebrities and people that are busy, they have better things to do with their time. And so they take helicopters. If you've ever been to LA or sit in the Santa Monica Hills, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It is like a freeway in the sky. There are helicopters everywhere. There's one every 3 minutes going overhead. That's the way to get around in LA. So for Kobe Bryant and his 7 people besides the pilot that were traveling with him, to die in a helicopter crash is not that uncommon. Helicopters crash all the time. They often don't have celebrities in them. They have business people in them, or they have tourists in them, and we don't really talk about it much, but it's been that way for a long time. It's that way in Florida as well. So let the conspiracy theories be put to rest. Kobe Bryant flew in helicopters probably twice a day for the last 10 years. It's not that uncommon. So let's talk about the coronavirus. Is it or is it not a pandemic? Well, coronaviruses are a large family of viruses. They look a little bit different than the normal virus, which kind of looks like a little, question mark kind of thing. And some of the functional groups are very, very common from year to year. Just the end of the virus is the part that determines what organ or how sick people are going to get, how virulent it's going to be. And flu viruses have always been crafted to deal with that last little tail bit. There are some vaccines that are being crafted to deal with the main body of the flu virus, which that way one flu shot would guard you against probably 90% of the different flu viruses that are out there. We never know which one's going to break out. But coronaviruses are a little bit different. They're more round in shape. They have different functionality about them as far as the macrophage of the virus itself. And the difference in this virus, coronaviruses, they cause illnesses ranging from, common cold with a little bit of aches to a very thick buildup of mucus in the lungs. And if you know anything about pneumococci, which is the bacteria that is responsible for pneumonia, it is a small round bacteria that grows in clumps, and the body tends to react to it by surrounding it with T cells and issuing, kind of pus. And the issue is that the pneumococci is anaerobic. That is to say, it doesn't thrive well in oxygen. It has to be buried in some kind of liquid, which usually is the mucus in the bottom of the lungs. So when the flu, your lungs react to it by secreting a lot of mucus that's thick, that the cilia cannot get to the bronchial tubes to to get out of the lungs by coughing. That is a nice, warm, protein-rich place for these bacteria to grow. Now, it's not the bacteria itself that kills you. It is their waste product, the toxins that they leak out. And what happens is it gets in your bloodstream, you get toxemia, and you die. That's how people die of pneumonia. And people that are over age 63, they typically are more susceptible to pneumonia for a lot of reasons. One, their immune systems are lower. Two, they're not as active. They don't run as much. Their lungs aren't as clear. Their lungs are worn out from 6 decades of coughing and toxins and pollution and all kinds of stuff. And typically when an old person gets sick, they lay down, and when they lay down, the lungs fill up with mucus, and underneath the mucus grows the pneumonia, and you get adult pneumonia, and you die. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg had it. And if you don't get treatment with some kind of mist steroids going into the lungs to prevent that from inflaming the lungs, then you can die pretty quickly. And that's what makes flu so bad. That, and you just feel like crap and you don't want to move because you feel like you've been run over by a car. But of course, there are the common side effects that the body does. You have a histamine reaction, which is all the mucous membranes of your body start leaking to try to flush it out of the system. Your fever, your body temperature goes up because viruses need a very narrow range of temperature in order to propagate. Same with the bacteria that result from the mucus filling up your lungs. So what the human body does, something instinctive, it raises the body temperature up to 102, 103, 104 degrees to make it impossible for that virus or for the bacteria to multiply and allow the body time to catch up and get rid of it with its normal immune system. Of course, we take stuff to knock the fever down. We take stuff to knock the amount of mucus down, to kill the histamine reaction, which is the body's normal way of getting rid of stuff like that, flushing it out with more mucus. Because we don't like the symptoms. We don't like the runny nose. We don't like the cough. And so we take stuff to knock those symptoms down. And that just makes it worse. It just makes it harder to fight off. The difficulty with this particular coronavirus is that it attacks the organs, namely the kidneys. And as of yesterday morning, let's see here, coronavirus originated in China. It killed 26 people, infected more than 900. That is way higher than that now. And the reason is this. There's a couple of reasons. One is this virus has a very long gestation period. Like the reason that Ebola doesn't spread really fast is because the gestation period is very short. From the time you catch it to the time you start bleeding out your eyes is just a few days. So and once that happens, you don't feel like moving anywhere. So it's a very localized kind of exposure. And typically, if you see someone with blood coming out of their eye sockets, you stay away from them. And Ebola is typically not airborne. You have to actually physically touch the person to get it. That's not true. That's not true with typical flu viruses. Flu viruses can be projected like 50 feet with a cough. Yeah, 50 feet. If you sneeze, the little nebulized droplets can flow on the air for 100 yards. And it also can stay viable on surfaces like commodes and doorknobs and clothes and things like that. So this virus having a 14-day gestation period, that is to say, it's 14 days before you start showing symptoms. You don't even know you have it. And there are also multiple ways to contract the virus through your eyes, your nose, your mouth, of course, your hands touching your face, any of that. And should this go airborne with a cough, now, fortunately, in Asian culture, and if you've ever traveled overseas, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. If people are ill, at least a little bit, they have the common courtesy to wear a mask. So those people that you see on the sidewalk and elevators and sweeping streets and all that, they're not wearing the mask to keep from getting ill. They're already ill. They're just respecting you by preventing their cough or their sneeze from propagating the virus into the community. Americans don't do that. We don't wear masks in public because it makes us look funny, and we're very conscious about how we look in public, and we don't really care about anybody else. So that means that this virus can spread massively, especially in high density populations like Wuhan. Wuhan has been isolated now. Pretty much the entire city is on quarantine. And even though this is not a pandemic in the sense that it's not taking city by city by city, there are people with symptoms that are getting out of Wuhan and into airports in the United States. And fortunately, these people are being quarantined rather quickly. And of course, even if you get the virus, if you get to medical care soon enough, you can get over it just fine. Typically, it's got a very low kill rate. But in public, you go home and just suffer through this with chicken soup and whatever, Chinese TV. You can die. You can die because you'll get to a point where you just can't move. One of the guys, let's see, who is this guy that's talking here? This is a scientist at Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. His name is Eric Toner. He said, I have thought for a long time that the most likely virus that might cause a new pandemic would be a coronavirus. As of now, the outbreak is not a pandemic, but has been reported in 8 different countries. I think that's more countries than that now. We don't yet know how contagious it is. We know that it is being spread person to person, but we don't know to what extent. An initial first impression is that this is significantly milder than SARS. Now, SARS was an upper respiratory infection that took place. This would have been 2002, 2003 in China. I was in China, I think, in 2002, and I came back. I had a cough for the longest time. I had a cough for 6 months. It was horrible. But, you know, it was rough. It was rough. They were catching people coming off airplanes with pyrometers that would aim at your forehead and check if you had a fever. If you did, they pulled you off the plane. But the thing is, you've already been on the plane for 4 or 5 hours. You're in an aluminum tube at 30,000 feet. Everybody on that plane has been exposed to your breathing. So, on the other hand, he says, it may be more transmissible than SARS, at least in the community setting. His analysis used a fictional virus called CAPS, which would be resistant to any modern vaccine and would be deadlier than SARS. The simulation involved a virus originating in Brazil's pig farms. The outbreak started small, with farmers coming down with symptoms before spreading it to crowded and impoverished areas. The simulation also showed flights being canceled, travel bookings failing by 45%, as people disseminated false information on social media. It also triggered a financial crisis around the globe, with global GDP falling 11% and stock markets falling 20 to 40%. No word on whether or not the simulation accounted for the modern monetary theory the Fed is essentially governing with now. Tim went on to say, if we could make it so that we could have a vaccine within months rather than years or decades, that would be a game changer. But it's not just the identification of potential vaccines. We need to even think about how they are manufactured on a global scale and distributed and administered to the people. The problem, Tim, is that the public, we know all about vaccines. We see side effects from vaccines all the time, because you make a vaccine that you say one size fits all, but it doesn't, because everybody's genetics are different. Everybody's health system and physiology is slightly different. And so you say, oh, well, 99.5% of the people will be fine taking this vaccine. Okay, great. So you give that vaccine. You give that vaccine to 100 million people. Well, what is 0.5% of 100 million people? Yeah, it's 500,000 people. 500,000 people have a life-changing side effect to that. That's not acceptable to anybody. That's a lot. That's a city of people with side effects. And that's why when the elite get a vaccine, they don't get the same vaccine you and I get. No. They have a complete blood workup. They do a DNA background. They customize that vaccine for that person's immune system. And that's the vaccine they get. They don't get all the other filler stuff and stabilizers and preservatives and, heavy metals and things like that they put in these vaccines that cause these debilitating effects. It's not the same vaccine, Tim. That's why it takes a year to 10 years to develop a vaccine, because we know that once you put the label vaccine on it, the drug companies are no longer liable for those 500,000 cases of side effects. And that's the issue. A Chicago woman returned a couple days ago from Wuhan, the epicenter of the outbreak, and began experiencing symptoms a few days after arriving home. There's no telling how many people she went to see, whether she went to the movie theater or went to the cafeteria or to work several days. Some people feel like crap, but they can't afford to miss a day of work because it's Wednesday. And if they need be, they'll take off Friday and take one vacation day and, weather it through the weekend and come back on Monday. But most people can't afford to take a full day off. It's too much pay gone. They're too close to being homeless. So they come to work sick and they sit in their cubicle and they cough and they drink Theraflu and eat throat lozenges, but they infect everybody else. Anyway, this woman was 60. She called her doctor after symptoms arose, and she was admitted to a hospital and placed in isolation. And she's fine. She's stable and is probably out by now. The woman was not symptomatic while she was flying. And probably everybody on that plane, she probably caught it while she was on the plane. Hard to say. At least 63 potential cases are under investigation in 22 states, and 11 were confirmed negative. So, do I think it's going to be a pandemic? My professional opinion is no. A pandemic in the sense that it's going to debilitate, say, the crew of a nuclear power plant, or a police force, or all the EMT workers in a city. No, I don't think that's going to happen. For a couple of reasons. One is not every single case of the virus is the same. You understand how viruses work. They are either the most advanced form of life that we know because they don't respirate, they don't require much energy to survive, or they're the simplest form of life form. In any case, the only way that they multiply is the virus has to get into a body. And then this little lunar lander sticks itself to a cell, injects its genetic material into the cell, uses the reproductive system of the cell to duplicate its own DNA and make more macrophages. Then the cell lyses the virus, then propagates in the system, and the reaction continues on. You ever notice when you have a virus, you're infected with a virus, you have waves, like you'll feel rotten for an hour or so, and then it'll start to feel better for half hour, 2 hours, and it'll hit you again. And it's worse at night, 2 or 3 phases during the night, and then back, in the day you wake up and you kind of cough a little bit, walk around, drink some liquids, and you feel okay, and then noonish it starts. The reason is because this is the cycle. The macrophages get injected into the cells, they reproduce, the cells die, the toxins go into the blood system, your liver and kidneys try to get rid of those toxins, and that's when you feel bad. So it comes in these waves like that. That's the way viruses work. Without the human body, the viruses don't go anywhere. And each time those viruses are injected into a cell and they replicate, they have an opportunity to mutate. They mutate based on several things. The material that's in that particular human body, for one thing, the toxins or environmental stress that particular body's on. Is it in cold weather, warm weather? Is it, in lots of sunshine, no sunshine? What's the vitamin intake of that person, vitamin C, whatever? All that has an effect on the longevity and the stability of that virus. If the virus stays stable, then it will continue to get people sick. If the virus becomes unstable because it's now in the 10,000th generation, it becomes less and less virulent because the human bodies in which it's multiplying change it each time, and it becomes less and less contagious. The same thing with the AIDS virus. The AIDS virus changed over time. Why? Because the hosts died. The hosts died. And so the virus almost kind of has to change in order to survive. And that's exactly what happens. Not because it's conscious or anything, because of the probability. If the host keeps dying, then that strain of the life form cannot continue. It can't go infect someone else. Only the ones that don't kill the host can go on and infect someone else. And that's the way it is with the flu virus as well. So I don't think it's going to become a pandemic. You're welcome. They're saying thank you in the chat room. Trust me, watch the news. I've been to the future and looked back on this. It isn't that bad. The worst thing that can happen is 65 million people die from this virus. But think about it. Think about it. If it's 65 million Chinese that die from this, that could be pretty bad. Could be pretty bad for China. Is it going to be bad for France? Is it going to be bad for Australia? I don't know. I mean, I don't know what the effects of those 65 million people not being on the earth anymore would be, but if they manage to keep it localized, that's pretty much what will happen. One country will bear the brunt of this infection. All right. Let's move on because I want to talk a little bit about the Impeachment Show Season 5. You know what? We got about a minute and a half left. At 9 o'clock, I have Tim Huckabee coming on. He is the author of a book about World War III and North Korea. We're going to explain it all to you. He's been a good guest in the past. He's going to come on with videos. So if you're watching on YouTube Live, you can see Tim in the guest window on my OBS mask there. If you're listening on Truth Frequency Radio, you'll be able to hear him just fine because we're doing this all by Skype. Yes, thank you for... Oh, the only concern would be is if you are on other kinds of meds. Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah, that's a good point, MG, that if you're diabetic or you have high blood pressure and you're taking those meds with a normal, healthy body, it keeps everything in stasis. But when you add this virus to it and you exacerbate some of the other abilities for the body to defend itself or to maintain temperature or blood pressure, then you could exacerbate things. Absolutely correct. As with all viruses, it goes after the old, the weak, and the very young. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
The reviews for Extendivite are amazing. Here are some from Amazon. September 2018. Extendivite works in keeping my blood pressure in the normal range. I've been using Extendivite for many years now. May 2018. Great product. I use regularly and I rarely get sick. March 2018. This product has relieved what appeared to be angina pain in my chest and shortness of breath after climbing stairs. I'm quite happy about it. February 2018. My husband, son, and I have been using this product for a few months now, and we have noticed an improvement in our joints and blood pressure. Tell us your story. Get Extendivite today. To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822. Or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Greetings, Earth Explorers. My name is Brooks Agnew, and I am your host on X Squared Radio every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the Truth Frequency Radio Network. This is where the past meets the future. We explore the mysteries of the universe and of the Earth. We might go a little past your imagination, but have no fear. You will be safely traveling with us. We will dissolve the propaganda of dangerous people with dangerous plans for the planet. We will discuss the latest technologies and challenges for humankind. We will discover the safest place for you to stand when the thinkings and doings of mankind come flying apart, and how you can be one of the people that helps put it back together. Join us.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
So glad everyone is still out there. Thank you so much for being part of X Squared Radio tonight on the America Free Radio Studio, coming to you through the Truth Frequency Radio Network, where the truth freaks hang out. Somebody called Donald J. Trump is in the chat room on TFR. So I said, thank you, President Trump. If it's really him, I think it would be very excited to see that President Trump is part of the TFR chat room. But if you're interested, go check it out. Hopefully he gets the word and comes over and visits us on the YouTube live channel. That's just cool. It's all the same family. So I was going to give you an update on the Impeachment Show Season 5, but it actually went pretty quick. 21 hours of Somonix City with Schiff for Brains and Nadlis, basically saying the same thing they've been saying for the last 3 years, Orange Man bad. And in 2 hours, Jay Sekulow and his team put the entire thing in the shredder. All they had to do was show the facts. The rest of the clips, the rest of the sentence, the part of the transcript that was ignored or twisted or reversed or played backwards by Schiff for Brains and Chairman Nadlis, and it was done. So now the question remains: shall they or shall they not call witnesses? Now, Josh Hawley from Missouri, who's the Republican, beat out a incumbent Democrat, by the way, for that position. He's going to try to push for a vote on subpoenaing witnesses. It's not going to go anywhere. I think it has to be done, but it's not going to go anywhere. An official position has to be taken on this. I am in Lindsey Graham's camp here. I know what you're saying. Oh gosh, we should, either call all the witnesses or don't call any witnesses, and you'd rather see them all called and for all this to come out. But I have to tell you, been to the future and looked back at this, and I can tell you that a quick acquittal, regardless of the squealing of the pigs for more access to the campaign nipple of mainstream media, is the good thing. Because once this is quickly acquitted, not dismissed, but acquitted, then the impeachment goes away. Because then he's no longer impeached for life, he's acquitted for life. Now, that's done. The Senate isn't going to do the Congress's job for them. They're not going to call witnesses that Congress should have called. They're not going to get testimony Congress should have gotten. They're not going to read documents that Congress should have read. That was Congress's job. It's not the Senate's job. Once the acquittal is handed down, and that is done, and then the weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth and the batteries run low on the camera lights and the news cycle moves on, then you use the Senate judiciary and you start calling and investigating these people on Ukrainian corruption. All 5 Bidens, if you can, Clinton, Kerry, find out who's managing the money for the late McCain, Pelosi's son, and others that are mixed up in the money laundering of taxpayer money. And believe me, they have quantitative accountants that can find every single penny that's been laundered through those shell corporations and those nonprofits. Every single penny can be found going back a long time. Yes, it goes through like a, I don't know if you know what a pachinko machine is. It probably still exists in Japan, but it was a sort of like a pinball machine, but it's vertical. And you take a thumb switch and you kick the little steel ball up, and it bounces off nails, randomly and goes into a little hole, and it either comes out in the pay pan or the machine keeps it. So we're talking a pachinko machine of money laundering. Billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars go into the pachinko machine. It filters down, pops out in the bank account of various congressmen, various senators, various professional bureaucrats, and other people that are doing business in Ukraine that are U.S., that have influence, like buying TV commercials or contributing to political campaigns. And that's how the money's laundered. So the whole thing should be shut down. This is one of the reasons why it is so adamant in the impeachment show, because they want to protect the Ukraine money machine. It's not as like one big checkbook like China, where you just have checks coming from the Chinese government and they're put into your hedge fund, like Hunter Biden did. It's not as clear cut as that. It is much more nefarious, because there are, each time dollars go into and out of a bank account, there are handling charges, and everybody's making money off of it. So while the aid checks are being written, and in Biden's case, it was $1 billion that was being written to Ukraine, that's $1,000 million. That's $1,000 million. You know what that means? It makes 1,000 people instant millionaires. Or if you take 50% off the top, it takes 500 people and adds $1 million to the bank account. Can I see a show of hands in the audience? And you can do it in the YouTube chat room and the TFR chat room, and just out there, I'll see you. A show of hands of those people whose lives would get better with another $1 million in your bank account. Huh? Come on. It's unanimous. I mean, every single person out there, your life would be better with $1 million in your bank account, right? And you don't have to do anything for it. The only thing you have to do is give your bank account number, and we'll put the money in there. Well, I say that, but November is coming, and there'll be you'll have to make a contribution to the DNC, of course. Yeah, and you may have to run, a few attack ads against the Orange Man. We'll give you the ads to run, but you have to pay, to get them. It won't be that much, like a couple $100,000. You net $800,000. What's wrong with that? Nothing is wrong. You see what I'm saying? To go to bureaucrats, or to go to donor class individuals and say, look, don't worry about it. You put in your $250,000 now, and we'll get you $750,000 later. After we appropriate the money to Ukraine, it'll go through 123 Corporation, and it'll come right back to you threefold. What a deal, right? That's the Ukraine money machine. That's how it works. That's how it works. And that's what the impeachment show season 5 is about. It's a short season, and we don't really know if it's going to be the season finale yet, although if I was writing it, it would be, because it's getting kind of boring to me. What I have posted here in YouTube Live, you can see, is my ad for my webinars. February 8th is coming up. The class 1, the 101 class of the master class for second chance success mentoring. So if you find yourself over 40, you don't have any wealth to manage, then we probably need to talk. No, I'm not going to send you money, but I am going to help you unlock the bounty of the universe. That's what I do. I've been doing it for the Fortune 500 for a long time. They like me. They pay me well to do it. But you know what? I'm getting older. I'm a little tired of working 90-hour weeks, trying to solve problems for some of the biggest corporations in the United States. I'd rather solve your problems. And I can do it. I promise. I got all the tools, and I'm one of the most experienced in the country at doing it. I can do it. But you have to go to brooksagnew.com, click on the webinars link. I promise it's the best $47 you're ever going to spend on yourself. It's a good presentation. You owe it to yourself. Unless you want to come see me live. If you want to come see me live, then don't click on the webinars link. Click on the upcoming events link, because I want to be speaking in several places around the country. It's significantly more than $47 because you got to fly there. You got to get a hotel. You got to pay for a ticket. You're going to spend, $1,000 to $2,000. A lot of people can afford to do that. Most cannot. We'll see you at the webinar. All right, let's move on because I got to cover this before Tim comes on. Tim's going to be coming on at 9. And I want to talk about this because North Korea isn't really in the news, not like it has been. And I think we need to bring this around because I am looking at the future. I'm telling you, the next week, we're going to be driving the nail when it comes to the main headlines. I call this section Nork Stew. North Korean leader Little Kim has accused the Trump administration of dragging its feet in nuclear negotiations and warned that his country will soon show a new strategic weapon to the world as it bolsters its nuclear deterrent in face of gangster-like U.S. sanctions and pressure. Are the sanctions having their effect? You bet they are. They're not happy about it. Even the state-run tours are not happy about it, but they understand it. They understand why they're in place, and they do see better relations with the U.S. coming someday. That's not necessarily the case from the upper leadership, though. Little Kim's comments came after a month-long standoff between Washington and Pyongyang over disagreements involving disarmament steps and the removal of sanctions imposed on the North. He said that we will shift to a shocking actual action to make it pay for the pains sustained by our people so far and for the development so far restrained. The world will witness a new strategic weapon to be possessed by the DPRK in the near future. Little Kim also added that if the U.S. persists in its hostile policy toward the DPRK, there will never be the denuclearization on the Korean Peninsula, and the DPRK will steadily develop necessary and prerequisite strategic weapons for the security of the state until the U.S. rolls back its hostile policy. This is just rhetoric. It's practically meaningless, except that what dictators normally do is they try to negotiate from a position of strength. Even if they're standing in mud or sand, they're going to try to set their feet and they're going to try to say, oh, if you don't roll back these sanctions, we're going to punch you in the nose. Yeah, well, here's the thing about it. Lots and lots of people have punched President Trump in the nose. And after they get the wires out of their jaw, they don't punch him in the nose anymore. This is not a president that bluffs. This is not a president that makes threats lightly. And we have enough military to take the kind of action that we're talking about. If we didn't have that kind of military, we would not have the negotiations for peace that we do. Because, as I said, when you're standing in mud or standing in sand, you're not very scary. In the past 2 years alone, when the DPRK took preemptive and crucial measures of halting its nuclear test and ICBM test fire and shutting down the nuclear test ground for building confidence between the DPRK and the U.S., far from responding to the former with appropriate measures, conducted tens of big and small joint military drills, which its president personally promised to stop and threatened the former military militarily through the shipment of ultra-modern warfare equipment into South Korea. You know, those days are past, little Kim. You know darn well we haven't had military operations outside your country in quite some time. Everything is kind of settled down. Not to say that our boot is going to be removed from your neck, because you have to take the steps that you promised you were going to take. And if you don't, then things are going to continue, and every single thing that you eat, every single thing that you wear, you're going to have to make in North Korea. And that can't go on forever. So we're going to discuss this in a little more detail, because Tim wrote this fantastic book on North Korea, a lot of detail in it. And he also talks about what I call the global syndicate. He calls it another name. We'll talk about it, but it has a lot of nations that are involved in this. And I've brought up the question in the past when we've had Tim on the program, you know, what is the global syndicate? Who's running the global syndicate? Now, he maintains that it is Prince Charles. I look at Prince Charles and I see a guy that's probably wearing diapers. This guy is not in good shape. He's not never was the sharpest knife in the drawer. He's a royal, and I guess you know I'm Scottish. And you know how I feel about the royals. I won't put it out any more than just that. I don't think anybody who has certain genetics or a certain nose or a certain last name or certain color eyes or a certain blood type deserves any hereditary advantage over anyone else. I'm sorry, it's just the way I feel. I don't think there should be any such thing as royals. If you want to hold them up there, you want to say, oh, you know, God save the Queen and all that, and sing songs and da, 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 la, 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 you know, all those songs, wonderful. Have at it. But we make our own way in this world. We come into this world unable to even wipe our own butts. And we make our own way. Each and every person has a set of inalienable rights that we exercise our own way to do whatever it is we want to do to affect the universe and the earth. To be born a royal is, I think, part of this global syndicate, but doesn't make it all up. Let's see. One other thing I want to cover before we get into that is what I call the Bernie burn. The Bernie burn. Well, the unthinkable has happened. Do you remember the movie Days of Thunder? Remember that movie? Tom Cruise and Robert Duvall. Good movie, right? You remember the line where Robert Duvall is talking to Cole, who's played by Tom Cruise. Slow down, you're going too fast. And Cole responds over the radio saying, I'm not. Everyone else has slowed down. Well, it turned out he was right. It also turns out that is exactly what is happening to the Democrat candidates in Iowa. Lying Liz, little Peter Buttcrack, and China Joe have all been exposed and are slowing down. Add to that the Pelosi plot to steal the presidency for herself, and you have all the candidates who happen to be senators sequestered in Washington while they film the impeachment show season 5, and you have the makings for a race for last place. And that leaves only the socialist still in the race. Oh, the news media would have you believe that he's surging ahead. But that's not true. All the other candidates have slowed down. So I felt it was appropriate to share with you the platform of the charismatic socialist with no personality. He has some main points that I think you should know about. You might at first think that they're ridiculous, but trust me when I tell you this, Bernie intends to finish burning down America. And he is stacking our millennial children around the bottom of the pyre to use as fuel to set the fire. The first thing in the platform you need to understand is no more private property. Okay? Your commercial buildings will go first. Skyscrapers, industrial parks, all that will go first. That'll be taken over by the government. Your income-producing property will be next. Yes, it's true. All your condos, all your apartments, there's no reason to have all that. The state can run all that. That's not going to make individuals millionaires and billionaires. Your land will be next. There's no reason for you to have 40, 50,000 acres. That's more than any one man should own. The government will take ownership of all that. And the next thing will be your stock ownership, okay? The stock market is the source, the breeding ground for millionaires and billionaires to play gambling with the working people, and so all that's going to go away. Oh, no more 401ks. No more trust accounts. Millionaires don't earn their money, they hide it. And billionaires don't make money, they take money from the poor. So all the trust accounts, all the nonprofit shell corporations, all these LLCs will become property of the state. Number 3, no more private education. All curricula will be written and controlled by the state. All tuition will be paid to the state, and then universities will be state-owned. There will be no more private universities. Number 4, no more free press. Yeah, well, I mean, the media empire is already owned by the global syndicate, but the web will be owned and controlled by the state. It's true. Senator Bernie Sanders last month unveiled a sweeping $150 billion proposal that would fundamentally reshape how the internet works in the United States. You don't like the way it's working I get that. But this plan, which is dubbed high-speed internet for all, it's right underneath Medicare for all, would effectively turn the internet into a public utility along the lines of water and power. You remember they tried that with the Obama administration. They had the majority in the FCC, and Ajit Pai made it public, and it was able to finally, before the deadline, Ajit Pai was able to reverse that once the Republicans took control. High-speed internet service must be treated as the new electricity, the proposal says, a public utility that everyone deserves as a basic human right. Internet is a human right next to abortion. To that end, the $150 billion would go to creating publicly owned and democratically controlled, cooperative or open access broadband networks. And here's how it works. Number 1, requiring internet service providers like Verizon and Comcast to offer a basic internet plan that provides quality broadband speeds at an affordable price. The sales pitch is that the high-speed internet should be affordable and available to everyone. The FCC, and you realize how impossible this is, right? If you live in an area that has 2 or 3 people per mile, they're not going to run cable out to your house. They're not going to run 6 miles of cable and all the boosters and connectors and filters and everything so you can have internet for $19.95 a month. There's just no economic model for that. That's not happening. Forget about it. I don't care what the law says. The FCC will review prices and regulate rates where necessary. You know what that is, right? That's wage and price controls. It's straight out of the Marxist handbook. Ensuring areas without competition aren't able to run up prices. In other words, eliminate all the competition. No competitors can come in and run the prices up. But that's not what happens when competitors come in. When competitors come in, it drives the prices down, not up. That's the free market system. We will also require providers to offer a basic plan for regulating rate to all customers, ensuring everyone will be able to affordably connect to the internet. Number 2, redefining minimum broadband speeds. Yeah. You know what that's going to be, right? The floor is going to drop. It's going to drop down to about 2 megabytes per second, which is not feasible for shows like this. We've got to have faster speed. Number 3, breaking up companies that offer internet service and provide content like Comcast and AT&T. In other words, break up the successful companies that have already made the investment. They're the ones that laid the poles. They're the ones that put the fiber optic out. They're the ones that invested in all the microelectronics. They're the ones that invested for a 10, 20, 30-year payback. And now you take the payback away because you break up the company after they've made that investment. All those shareholders get screwed out of their investment. Over the past several decades, the telecommunications industry has consolidated into a few syndicate players who provide internet access, and those companies have in turn merged with the media empire. The resulting giants will sell you the internet and cable service you use and provide the content that runs on those services, and there will be no room for competition or dissent. Under Bernie Burns' proposal, those conglomerates would be broken apart and effectively owned by the state. Number 5, providing $150 billion to create publicly owned and democratically controlled cooperative or open access broadband networks. And in some cases, your provider may even throttle your service speed in an attempt to dissuade you from using it. The proposal from the Sanders campaign explicitly calls for the elimination of both practices. You know, and I know exactly what will happen when the state controls the internet. Programs like this and all the news that you get on your phone is going to be controlled by the state. No more dissent, no more free thinking, no more criticism. And that's the way it is. That's the way it always is when the government takes over the internet. Let's take a quick break. In a few moments, we will bring Tim Huckabee on, and we will talk about North Korea and the coming World War III. Don't go away more. Coming at you right after this. Okay, we disconnected the studio. Let's see if we can add Tim, and we will be good to go. There we are. We're going to go ahead and add Tim with a video so you can watch what's going on. If I can find it here.
Do you see me, Brooks?
Not yet. Hang on a second here. I should be able to, but hang on one second while I monkey with this. Here we go. Guest screen. That's what we want. Okay. I'll bring the studio back in, so we will have a hot mic while the news is on. People are listening on YouTube Live right now, and so we'll try to keep quiet while the news is on. All right, here we go.
DJ Pop, Fox News. Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter, Gianna, among the dead in a helicopter crash, L.A. County Sheriff Alex Villanueva.
There were no survivors. We have a manifest that indicates that there was 9 people on board the aircraft. The pilot plus 8 individuals.
At the same press conference, the LA County Fire Chief Darrell Osby describes what he saw when he arrived.
Our firefighters discovered approximately a quarter-acre brush fire that resulted from a crash on the hillside.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal joins us live from the scene of the accident with more. Jessica.
CJ, I'm on a street across from the hillside where the helicopter crashed, where Kobe Bryant fans have gathered to get a glimpse of the site.
My childhood, he's the one that got me into basketball. So it's a childhood thing, and it's just so unreal that it's him and his daughter is gone.
Jonathan Esquivel wore his number 24 jersey, and he and his family brought purple and gold balloons to the area.
It's hard. It's hard to believe.
Some fans drove more than an hour to come here.
I think he was a huge part of LA culture, and it's just a shame to see him go and in the manner that he did.
While not originally from here, Kobe's 20-year NBA career was with the LA Lakers, and he brought us 5 championships, CJ.
NBA Hall of Famer Julius Erving enjoyed a special connection to Kobe. He played alongside Bryant's dad.
Hey, Tim, I can't see your video. Can you, is your camera on? Ah, there we go.
Better?
Yes. Now I can see you just fine. All right. I'll bring the studio back in. You look pretty good.
Try to get rid of my settings here in Skype so I don't see them. I don't know how to do that.
I don't know how to do it either.
Nuts.
All right, there. Yeah. Should work. All right, we're looking good. I know you can't see me because I'm using my video for OBS, so the people at YouTube Live can see us, but you can't see me. So,
are you seeing my video feed or are you seeing my screen?
No, I'm seeing your video feed.
Okay, good.
So we're good. All right, let me bring the studio back in. There we go. Oh. Well, I don't know how to bring him back in. I don't want to remove him from the call. I want to put him back in the call. Come on, man. Oh, I hate this new Skype. Well, it's not working. Oh, gosh. I love this new internet. New Skype is crazy.
But you see me?
Yes, I can see you just fine. Let me...
Okay.
All right, I'm going to add the studio back in. There we go. Now we got the studio feed. And we are live again. Okay, so let me put Tim back on the screen. Okay, my guest tonight is Tim Huckabee. He's the author of this amazing book, which was quite prophetic. A lot of things were written in it. And we're going to discuss a little bit more about that. But the reason I wanted to bring Tim on is because of, well, two things. One is there's been kind of a lack of North Korean news. But then there's this very strange North Korean news that came out that they have this new strategic weapon that they're going to show off. And even though all the parades they've been having, they haven't really shown off any big hardware. It's more been dancing and gymnastics and flowers and, you know, wonderful things that are telling the world that, look, everything is fine between North Korea and the United States. Something else is going on behind the scenes. I can feel it. I just go out to the future. When I look back, I can feel something ain't right. So I'm bringing on the expert, and tell us a little bit about yourself and about your book, and then we'll get started.
Well, good evening, Brooks. Thanks for having me on. So my background is pretty varied. Information technology, military stuff. I served in the Air Force, attended the Air Force Academy. And I've written several books, mostly dealing with Bible prophecy, Bible history, theology, but also military analysis, military things like this book, North Korea, Iran, and the Coming World War. And folks, this is the book, in case you can see it right here. It's a pretty substantial book. And so my military background was helpful with that. And then additionally, of course, as you know, Brooks, I'm working on a series called Solar Apocalypse, which gives evidence for non-terrestrial life in our solar system that comes straight from the world's major space agencies, things that they have not been willing apparently to talk about publicly, but they have the evidence in spades, and I'm going to expose it.
So do we keep all this separate, or is it like this new technology? So one thing that a lot of people don't know about North Korea is they are a sequestered, industrialized nation. That is to say, you know, we have incubators and we have universities and we have factory environments that we develop things here in the United States, And they tend to disseminate pretty quickly for several reasons. One is we have employees that come and go, and when they go, they take our ideas to other companies, and so it kind of cross-pollinates. The other is that companies have to raise money, and so they bring in, investors, or they bring in brokers to show off their technology, and that's another way that it disseminates. And the other is that the products actually hit the market. North Korea doesn't have any of that. They don't have any reporters. They don't have any TV people. There's nobody that quits and goes somewhere else and takes their technology with them. And it has been, since the early days of Bill Clinton, a place where countries' most deepest, darkest secrets can get dropped in order to be miniaturized and built out into very high levels of technology with nobody watching. North Korea, in particular, has been one of the favorite junkyard dogs for the global syndicate because it's a place where advanced weaponry can be developed without the threat of being exposed. And I mean all the way to miniaturized nuclear devices. You remember in September of 2017, there was a nuclear device that was detonated that was somewhere around 250 kilotons. This is an enormous bomb. Now, it blew up under a mountain and it collapsed the mountain. But it proved that North Korea can do two things. One is they can miniaturize the electronics. And two, they can enrich a fusion reaction, because it's the only way you can get an explosion of that size with that sharp of a tectonic or a seismic signature. It wasn't a fizzle. It wasn't multiple explosions. It was a clean, crisp explosion, which means that the micro enrichment using extra neutrons in the reaction took place perfectly. Now, there are only 9 countries in the whole world that have even done this. North Korea may have done it better than anybody. So now we have this junkyard dog. We have the global syndicate that's perfectly happy with them developing these weapons, in secret. And we have pretty much media silence. All these are recipes for danger. Don't you agree, Tim?
Yes, I do. I think there's a history with North Korea that's fairly important, as well as their connection to Iran. Initially it was Russia and then China propping up North Korea and getting the country really started down the communist path. And prior to that, there were a lot of Christians in North Korea. They used to call Pyongyang the Jerusalem of the East, literally, because of the number of Christians there. So today that's all shifted, of course, towards South Korea. But when North Korea went communist, shall we say, they had the strong backing of Russia, then of China, and then, of course, in terms of their nuclear weapons program, that really came through China and Pakistan, by and large. And then, of course, the ballistic missile technology that they have, a good portion of that came between Pakistan, China, and Russia, with scientists leaving the former Soviet Union and a lot of other channels. But they've built up successfully, despite sanctions and so forth, a fairly robust infrastructure. A good portion of it is underground. And back in, I think it was 2005, 2006, I forget now, but when North Korea was first claiming, Brooks, to have tested a nuclear warhead, it was being dismissed by and large in the West and in the news. And then they just steadily progressed from there, while our presidents and others in the West just twiddled their thumbs and made lots of statements. And we've seen, unfortunately, more of the same with the Trump administration. I mean, we got very close to war, I would say, back in late 2017. And then in 2018, for a good while, with North Korea, and then it simmered down. And then we were in this negotiation process, supposedly, where North Korea and North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, and President Trump were getting along so well that suddenly they were buddies, and there was this agreement for North Korea to denuclearize, which all the serious analysts, thought was just nonsense. There was nothing concrete really on paper. And now, of course, we've reached the point within the last month, actually, that North Korea said, okay, we haven't gotten anywhere with this negotiation process. Clearly, the United States has been manipulating us, playing for time, when of course the opposite is the truth. North Korea has been doing the manipulating and playing for time. And while they haven't been testing warheads, they've been continuing to develop their technology, including now it appears they either have or they're very close to having submarines capable of launching nuclear-tipped ballistic missiles. And then additionally, perhaps more significantly, solid fuel rocket engines. It looks like maybe they've recently tested one. And now, within the same time frame of the latter thing, the solid rocket fuel testing, they've said, we're done negotiating. We're going to proceed with our testing of missiles and warheads. In just the last, I think, about a week or so, they've been pretty public about that. And we haven't seen those tests yet. But can you imagine the reaction of President Trump when that resumes?
Well, and here's the thing about it. A lot of people don't realize is that the submarines already existed. Okay, they had two actually. One was a diesel-powered sub, and the issue with the diesel-powered sub is these are kind of noisy when the engines are running, and we can track them pretty easily underwater. The other one they stole from South Korea. It is a very quiet submarine, very hard to track, but it only has one missile tube, and so it's sort of like a revolver. It could shoot a missile, and then it has to reload the chamber, repressurize it, and shoot another one. Now they've already tested shooting missiles out of this sub from under the water. The way this works is they fill up the chamber with nitrogen or helium, and they push the missile through the water very quickly to the surface. The fins pop out, and then the candle lights, and then off it takes. So it doesn't actually launch out of the sub. That would blow the sub up. But then it has to reload, which can take 20 minutes or more to get another missile in, get it all pressurized, and get it to launch. So it's slow moving. They've already successfully launched this, and in the time frame, I think since the last time you were on, or maybe right as the last time you were on, they have launched 2 satellites into orbit, which are now currently going around the Earth, and both of them are completely silent. No signals to or from them. We don't know what they're for. But I think they're not dead at all. They're just sitting there waiting to be turned on. So there is high technology in the hands of North Korea that was handed to them by this country and others. And like you said, Iran is involved. And we just popped Soleimani, who was a major bad player, high up and a planner of terror all around the world. But he's not the only guy. There are other guys. And with this kind of technology in Iran's hands and then Iran's proxies, we have a serious problem on our hands, don't we, Tim?
Well, I think it's much more serious, actually, even than what you've described and what the public has been told. So, I've got this book was published in July of 2018. It's still completely current, folks. There's nothing in it that isn't current. I will update you on what's happened since the book came out, which actually isn't much. But the book is called North Korea, Iran, and the Coming World War. Behold a Red Horse. At any rate, Brooks, the satellites you're talking about were launched some years ago, and the concern in the intelligence community and among some others, mostly conspiracy theorists, was that there could have been nuclear warheads aboard, a nuclear warhead aboard one or both of those satellites, and that's actually possible. And those satellites, the way that they were orbited, pass over the United States, coming from the region of Alaska, in a way that we don't see them till they're actually here. We have no actually visibility to their approach until they're actually over the U.S., and they pass right over the center, basically, of the continental U.S. So they are perfectly orbited, if they did have a nuclear warhead aboard either of them, to hit the United States with an electromagnetic pulse from orbit because of the height of those satellites that could actually strike us if they were nuclear armed. And that's something we actually don't know. And then when North Korea did actually last test an ICBM, they did it in a very vertical trajectory, but it had enough range to where it could have reached the central or continental U.S., the central U.S. really, and then it destructed. I forget if it was 70 miles or 70 kilometers altitude. I forget right now. I think it was about 70 miles. But at any rate, the media and the intelligence community was playing that down and saying, see, North Korea doesn't have the ability to get a warhead all the way through the atmosphere to strike a city. So we're not too worried about it yet. They haven't mastered that technology. I submit that that was a false explanation, and that in reality that was the perfect altitude at which to detonate a nuclear warhead for an EMP strike. And if North Korea or Iran had a desire to launch a successful asymmetric war against the United States, and I mean successful, the best way they could do it would be to hit us with one or two nuclear detonations at altitude, positioned to trigger an electromagnetic pulse that would wipe out much of our electronic infrastructure. And so what North Korea was really doing was not saying to the world, we're testing this technology to see if we can get a warhead through the atmosphere. They frankly don't care if their goal is an EMP strike. We know they can get the warhead far enough through the atmosphere regardless to do a successful EMP strike. And that's what they'd want to do. If they wanted to take us out, it would be foolish to try to actually strike even half a dozen of our cities with nuclear warheads directly, where you'd kill tens of millions of people, when you can take out our electric grid and maybe kill 100 million people in our population within 10 to 12 months, literally, from starvation and complete breakdown of our infrastructure, and in short order, hamper the U.S. military, hamstring it, because in the United States, our military is tied into the civilian electric grid. So once backup generators and so forth are out of fuel on our bases, our own military will be hamstrung in terms of energy production or energy access. Even if military electronics are hardened, they're still relying on the civilian electric grid. So,
well, there's an alternative to this. There's an alternative to this which has surfaced, and that is not a full asymmetric war, because this ties into the impeachment show season 5. What has been happening for the last 3 years is the global syndicate lost control of the White House. They immediately, within hours of the election, even before the inauguration, because I was at Trump Tower before the inauguration, there were already steps being taken by the global syndicate to try to get Donald Trump out of office, try to stop his agenda. They knew what his agenda was, and he was all about getting it done. So they took out his staff, and they harassed his family. They threatened him. I don't even know about the official threats or even if they're ever going to report them. But it turns out that impeachment show season 5 is not going well. It is not going well. They're not going to be able to remove him from office. There is no way the global syndicate likes to lose. For them, winning may not be attacking 10 or 12 cities in the United States. It may not be even killing 100 million Americans. For the global syndicate, it means only killing one guy, and that's Donald Trump. And they can't get him with a bullet. They'll get him with a weapon like this. Now, you can't do that with the EMP, but here's what you can do. Once the EMP goes off, even if it goes off at 110 miles up, it may not be enough to destroy our electronics, but it's enough to blink the grid out for 2 or 3 hours. Once the grid is out, and I'm talking within seconds of when the grid goes down, that sub we were talking about launches that missile off the coast. Within 6 minutes, I don't know what you can do in 6 minutes. I can't do much. I mean, even eggs take 3 minutes. Within 6 minutes, that missile is going to hit its target, and everything within 3 miles of that missile is gone. They only have to do one. Now, what will happen is the global media empire will come out. Believe me, the theme songs are already composed. All the news actors already have their scripts ready to read. Oh, President Trump had this coming. He drew it to himself. He polarized the world. He killed Soleimani. He killed this person, that person. It's only a matter of time before one of these bad guys or their friends or their family retaliated, and now the world is a safer place. Is that the scenario you see coming down?
Honestly, no. I see something far worse.
Okay.
And I address this in North Korea, Iran, in the coming World War. So not only did I talk about the EMP threat in quite a lot of detail and quote quite a few experts on it, but I pointed out, this is one of the last things, Brooks, that I added to the book, that there was a possibility, and there still is, of nuclear-tipped Iranian ballistic missiles in Venezuela pointed at the United States literally right now.
Right.
And so even if, and that's not nonsense, folks, there was a U.S. congressman, I believe it was, who several months back after the book was published actually came out and said there were Iranian nuclear weapons in Venezuela. He said it publicly. And then the news media suddenly covered it up. And so you can Google that. But I pointed that out in the book, that this was a real possibility because of what Iran has been doing in Venezuela, and then the partnership on the nuclear weapons program between North Korea and Iran. And the reality is that Iran has had their experts, so to speak, their nuclear folks, at, I believe, all of the North Korean nuclear tests, and they've exchanged ballistic missile technology between them as well. So whether Iran develops its own nuclear warhead, and I'll come back to that in a moment, even if they didn't, there's every reason to believe that Iran has access to North Korean nuclear warheads,
Sure,
certainly their technology.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then the other thing I point out in the book is that in 2008, it was reported, and this was more than a decade ago, that Iran detonated its first nuclear warhead in Iran as a test detonation. So there's reason to believe also that Iran itself has had nuclear weapons, certainly the capacity to build them, and certainly that they tested one, since 2008. And who's talking about that? You've got Israel saying we're never going to let Iran have a nuclear weapon, and smuggling this cache of documentation, all kinds of documentation out of Iran, after the book actually was published, I believe, or right around that time, I forget, but recently, saying, look, Iran's been lying to the world. They've been developing nuclear weapons, and they retained some of this stuff so they could proceed with that effort when they choose to do so. Yeah, but not admitting to the notion that Iran had already tested a nuke. And then you've got the United States, President Trump, again and again and again, as well as our Secretary of State, et cetera, saying, we'll never let Iran have a nuclear weapon. But I submit, folks, the cat's out of the bag. Iran's already got them, and they've had them. And it mystifies me that the public isn't being told the truth about that. And I think this is one of the reasons for our trepidation, really, in dealing with Iran. One of the reasons President Trump has been so soft-toed, so to speak, after Saudi Arabia's oil installation was struck. And also, I think one of the reasons we've been so cautious around North Korea. We're looking for alternatives, realizing that if we really go to war with North Korea and Iran, it could be a whole lot worse than the public has been told. And that doesn't even talk about the other threats from China and Russia, what could happen between India and Pakistan, things that I've also addressed in the book, Brooks. So I'm basically saying, if we see these wars happen, and we will, I believe, with North Korea and Iran, we are heading for World War III for sure, and it's going to be horrible.
Well, of course, there are a lot of us that are trying to take the optimistic way. We're trying to see, I've traveled quite a bit, and I can tell you, I was very surprised listening to our press and listening to what we get of international press here in this country. I was very, very surprised. I went through 5 countries, 2,000 miles in 20 days, and everyone loves Donald Trump. They love what is happening. They wish he was their president. Everywhere I look around the world, France, every nation where the globalists are, New Zealand, Australia, everywhere where the globalists are trying to push this Green New Deal, try to tax the people more money and take control of more of their private life in order to conduct this war against carbon, which it blows my mind. I'm a scientist. It's like a war against table salt, people. It's that ridiculous. They're revolting against it. They're demonstrating in the streets. They're becoming more and more vocal, and I would say violent, but the violence is more for show than it is actually trying to hurt people. What they're trying to do is say to the globalist syndicate, we're not taking it anymore. Look at Brexit. Finally happened. The Union Jack is finally being raised, and the European Union flag is being burned on the island as we speak. It's happening. So the global syndicate is losing ground. And I will tell you, and I'm sure Tim will agree with me because we're both students of history. As far back as you want to go, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years, the global syndicate has ruled the world for a long, long, long time. And they never give up. They may lose ground. They may lose a battle like they did in 2016, but they don't lose the war. And oftentimes they resort to war in order to get their way. So I don't want to see what Tim is talking about come to pass. Neither one of us do, I think. But the cards are on the table. And it is a fool who doesn't think that these things are possible. And that is one of the reasons why we have a program like this, to make you aware, so that you are aware of the thinkings and doings of the powers of the earth, so you know where to stand and you know how to take care of you and your family. So we're going to take a quick break, Tim. We'll hear the music here any second here. And then we'll come back. Tim is going to be with us for another segment. We're going to talk about more current events with relation to this and his book. And I'm going to ask him about questions about the sanctions and what effect that's having, and whether or not it would be a good idea to start relieving them. Don't go away. We'll be right back after this. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this.
It's amazing how people have been raving about ILife all over Facebook. They've been posting their testimonials just because they want to get the word out because it's worked so well for them. If you're not familiar with ILife, it's a 99% pure CBD oil, but the secret is the synergy between the hemp and the ayahuasca vine, the non-psychoactive component of the ayahuasca tea. We recently received an email from a wife whose husband has Parkinson's. For the first time, he's been able to sleep through the entire night. Another customer reported that they're no longer using NSAIDs because their tennis elbow has been relieved with ILife. The reports have been phenomenal and much more than we ever expected. Everyone should have access to this. That's why if you head on over to ILife.com right now and use coupon code TFR, we'll give you $5 towards your order. And we'll even ship it worldwide. That's ILife.com, AYA-life.com.
Okay, nurse, let's get this man to the ER stat.
Right away, doctor.
We see this every day. Heart attack or angina pain due to blocked and clogged arteries. Chelation can remove obstructions or blockages from arteries and help avoid painful and expensive surgery. Now there's Angioprim. It's a liquid oral chelation product that you take with juice. You start to feel the results fast. Angioprim increases blood flow all over the body, and that means more energy and strength to take on the day with less aches and pains. 60 years of research has gone into chelation, and Angioprim is the result. A safe and easy way to unblock your veins and arteries from buildup that slow circulation.
Paging Dr. Jones. Please report to the emergency room right away.
Log on now for a special radio offer from Angioprim. That's angioprim.com/radio. ANGIOPRIM. Angioprim.com/radio or call 877-882-7221. That's 877-882-7221.
Dowsing is the ancient science of finding water and metal underground. Albert Einstein said that dowsing was tapping into earth energies which modern science as yet does not understand. Diamonds, silver, gold, and platinum objects have all been found using dowsing. And now, for the first time on film, we visit the pyramids, Stonehenge, and ancient sites, dowsing for buried treasure and tapping into this mysterious earth energy.
The Enigma Channel. Intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, so glad you're back with us. Second segment with Tim Huckabee. His video's frozen right now, but I'm sure it'll restart in just a second. It's just the way Skype is. I think your audio's still there, aren't you there, Tim?
Yeah, I can restart my video. That'll help me.
Yeah, it might. It might.
Does something for you here.
I do want to bring up a good point brought up in the chat room. Rob says he sees the biggest problem facing the U.S. is the world bankers, socialism, aka communism, and light has failed throughout history. We should be talking about the money changers. It's true. Okay. We kind of believe that most of the wars are fought because of two reasons: the bankers or religion. But let me get Tim's thoughts on this.
Okay, so I'm going to do a little segue here, Brooks, in answering the question of that. So, I pointed out this book is a substantial book. What I really didn't emphasize is that it's based on Bible prophecy, not just current events. So I'm pointing out that the fiery red horse, the second seal of the book of Revelation, which is chapter 6, verses 3 to 4, speaks to North Korea and Iran. And in fact, that fiery red horse, which is a red Pegasus, is the national symbol of North Korea. So I point those things out in the book and a lot more in relation to that. But, I'm a Bible scholar and a prophecy guy, and I haven't really mentioned the other books I've written, Brooks, but I deal with this issue of the New World Order and who's really manipulating everything behind the scenes. But I also happen to be the guy who has given the church and the world the hard evidence on the actual identity of the coming Antichrist. Are you hearing me, Brooks?
Yep, I can hear you fine.
Getting a lot of background. Okay. So this book, The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea, which was published in '98, that's the first edition. Second edition is on its way. But on the front cover of this book is a coat of arms. And it's the heraldic achievement of a prince of Roman lineage who happens to be the actual individual foretold in Scripture to be the Antichrist, and who happens to be the person who's manipulating what happens behind the scenes in relation to the globalists. And one of the reasons that the globalists hate hate President Trump so much is because he loves Israel. And they want to see the land of Israel divided. They want to see the creation of a so-called Palestinian state, etc. They want to see Jerusalem divided. President Trump is not going along with that agenda. And so this is another reason that they can't stand to see him remain in office. As long as he's there, their agenda is thwarted, unless, of course, there's war against Israel and half the city is taken by force rather than agreement. And that is what Scripture foretells occurring. So the other thing about this, you mentioned like the environmental movement, some of the other things that are happening, like the climate propaganda these days. Literally all of that traces to this prince of Roman lineage, not to Al Gore. And So all of that is addressed in The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea, and the second edition of that book is on the way. But then I also address just about everything else, Brooks, having to do with Bible prophecy between my various books that are coming out. And North Korea, Iran, and the Coming World War is one of those. I've got a corresponding set of books called Israel, quote unquote, Peace and the Coming World War. So this North Korea, Iran book is mostly Asia-centric, if you will, and focusing on other areas of the world, but it brings the Middle East and Iran into it. And then the corresponding set of books that are coming are more focused on the Middle East and what's happening there, but all of it ties in to this Prince of Roman lineage and the rise of the Antichrist and globalism.
Well, a lot of times we talk about religion, and really what we're talking about is a church, because I maintain in my books that the Nephilim created all the religions anyway. They created the religions and then told each religion to hate all other religions. It was the perfect soup of confusion set forth by Lucifer. But when we're talking about churches, we're talking about something completely different than religions. In a church, you have something that you worship, some central thing that becomes your God. And for the bankers, and for what actually is controlling the world right now, not the value in the ground or the value, of what we can do with our own mind and our own flesh, is money. It's money that has become their God. It is money that they worship. Look at what has gone on in Ukraine for the last 20 years. This ATM machine that was set up that you could pour federal tax dollars into, and it goes through basically a washing machine. And after everybody grabs their piece of the pie, there's still money left over, which goes back in the hands of the very politicians that sent the money into the cash machine in the first place. And it's been working so well for them. How else do you think someone like Barack Obama can buy a $15 million mansion in Martha's Vineyard? Oh, by the way, he owns one in Dubai, and he owns one in Hawaii as well, almost as much. We're talking about $40-50 million that a couple they've never had a public job or a job with a W-2 paycheck as far as we know. How can they afford $40 to $50 million in mansions? It's because of this cash machine that has been set up. And this is what's driving the world right now. The church of banking, the church of cash. And that's what's really pushing the power around. When you talk about Iran, you're talking about a very small group of bloodthirsty Aryans. That's what Iran means, is Aryan Nazis, living in Persia, that took over the country of Persia by force, by assassination, by subterfuge, by threats. And right now, what we're witnessing is Persia is beginning to have an allergic reaction to this. There are demonstrations going on in hundreds of cities all over the country of Persia trying to kick Iran out of their country. And recently, and I covered this last week, the United States has sent over equipment, routers, servers, antennas, dishes, to try to hook up Persians to the internet, independent of Iran. So not only can they get their word out, like they're shooting demonstrators in the streets, but that we can get our word in to let them know we support them. Because what we really want is we want the women of Persia to rise up, take their hijabs off, and reclaim their Christianity, which they used to be one of the most Christian nations in the world, and throw Iran out of their country. These are the forces that are at work. And this ancient global syndicate, they do not want to lose, and they will use any weapon and any ideology at their disposal to win. I think that's what Tim's writing about, and he paints this biblical picture of the red horse, which is the Pegasus of Korea, and I call them the junkyard dog, the useful junkyard dog, but they're mean and they're bloodthirsty, and they will serve their rulers. So maybe we're trying to break all that apart. Maybe we're trying to write a new future. You think that's possible, Tim? Do you think we can enter a 1,000-year period of peace, or you really think we're headed for World War III?
Well, I'm a pretty strong Christian, so I would say I think that Bible prophecy will be fulfilled as it's written exactly, and I believe we're at that time point in history for that to occur. And I want to ask you, Brooks, are you seeing my video now?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, great. So, what was just happening in Israel, we're getting ready for this false peace treaty that Christians talk about to come to pass, that the Antichrist will be involved in imposing or enforcing. That puts a time frame to things. And of course, the events with North Korea and Iran, if they really are related to this fiery red horse of the book of Revelation, those things happen roughly, give or take a little bit of time, in the second year of the tribulation week, the last 7 years preceding Armageddon and Christ's return. We haven't entered that week yet, I don't believe. I think it's soon, but we're not there yet. And so that means we're probably more than a year away from these wars with North Korea and Iran, if I had to guess, the really bad ones. Time will tell, of course. But what I'm saying is that we see the global stage set. And I happen to be somebody, Brooks, who has more knowledge on these subjects than literally any other Christian on the planet who deals with Bible prophecy and so forth. This is my calling in the Lord. That's why God called me to reveal to the church who the Antichrist actually is, someone who's alive today with hard evidence, so biblically testable, provable evidence, not the kind of speculation that others have put out there historically, who have turned out to have egg on their face. That's not me. And so when we look at these things and I see things lining up so well, I can't tell you that it's tomorrow, but I can tell you that I think it is soon.
Sure.
And I do think it's going to come to pass. It looks that way.
Well, MG,
Sadly.
who's another one of our chatters in the YouTube chat room, asked the question, what about the Vatican? What role does the Vatican play in all this?
Many Christians, particularly since the Protestant Reformation in the 16th century, have tried to say that the Roman Catholic Church would produce the Antichrist. Others have said, no, we think that the religious leader who's tied in with the Antichrist, who's a false prophet, the false prophet, if you will, in the last days, will be the final pope of the Roman Catholic Church, whomever that is. I happen to agree with that latter viewpoint. I think that it's likely that the false prophet who works in tandem with Satan and the Antichrist, once the Antichrist actually comes to power, will be the final pope of the Roman Catholic Church, whomever that ends up being. I don't know that it's Francis necessarily, but whoever it is. And that's what I would say about the Roman Catholic Church. It's being led by an apostate clergy, an apostate priesthood that is not faithful to Scripture.
Well, you think Donald Trump is trying to break this up? You think he's a disruptor? That I don't see him being prophesied anywhere. In fact, I don't see America being prophesied in the Bible anywhere. But you think Trump going to Davos, putting it in their face? Of course, I think it took him 20, 25 years to prepare for this 8 years in office. I think every president should prepare for 20 years for the office. But do you think he's breaking it up? Do you think there's a possibility that he's at least delaying this day of reckoning?
No, I actually think he's bringing it to pass, and I'll tell you why. Israel has not been willing to divide Jerusalem voluntarily and has been resisting that. And so the false peace process, which has all, by the way, also, as I document in the Antichrist and the Cup of Tea, been under the same Roman prince. So it's not actually being run by the United States or the European Union or Russia, et cetera. It's actually under this Roman prince and has been since 1987, including what the Trump administration is doing. But where I'm going with that is Israel's been unwilling to divide Jerusalem particularly, and many in Israel have been unwilling to parcel out the territory that they have in the center of the Promised Land any further because of the threats surrounding the country and the reality that the United Nations has been utterly impotent in practically all of the promises it has ever made in relation to peacekeeping forces bringing genocidal criminals to justice, et cetera. And the International Criminal Court is an absolute joke. So Israel doesn't trust the process, doesn't trust the people. What it takes to actually move it forward with Israel is a leader the country trusts. And I will say flat out, there's no such thing as a trustworthy leader in today's world, because even if President Trump is trustworthy to Israel, he could go at any time. Policies of countries can change at any time. And so if Israel risks its life to agree to divide the territory, or Trump or anyone else, because they think that there's this bear hug suddenly between the United States and Israel, or this very strong, protective, security cooperation, maybe even security agreement where there's a mutual defense treaty kind of thing, which Netanyahu has openly discussed, by the way, with President Trump in the last year. They publicly admitted to that in the last year. But if anything like that comes to pass, that is the way to get Israel to be more open to compromising. We know biblically that Israel still will not agree to cede East Jerusalem. So whatever occurs in relation to the false peace process under this foretold individual who is the Antichrist, who's moving it behind the scenes, whatever actually comes to pass, and whatever treaty gets made that begins to be imposed or enforced, and there will be one, it will not include the division of Jerusalem. Israel will not agree to that. And the consequence will be that 3.5 years into the imposition or enforcement of this treaty, this covenant, Israel will be attacked and half of Jerusalem will be taken captive by force in war, according to the prophecies. I think that President Trump is destabilizing the situation in terms of the peace process sufficiently to get Israel to actually move. And I think that that's what is about to occur in the very near future. And, Prince Charles was just in Israel for the first time officially, the highest ranking member of the British royal family in the state of Israel in its history, the modern state of Israel. And he gave the best speech against the Holocaust and the horrors of it of all the world leaders, a fantastic speech, seconded only by Vladimir Putin, who gave a great speech also. That happened this week. And then he met, Prince Charles did, with Abbas to promote this idea of this false peace with Israel and to affirm for the so-called Palestinians that they should have a Palestinian state and East Jerusalem should be theirs. It should be divided. But gee, wouldn't it just be great if we all got along religiously? So that kind of a message. So President Trump, at the same time that he's about to unveil the administration's peace effort under this individual, at the same time that's happening, you've got this British royal in Israel pushing behind the scenes the peace process. And I think that's actually the reason that Jared Kushner, at the very last minute, canceled his trip to go to Israel, where he was going to meet with the same folks about discussing the unveiling of the peace process. He claimed it was due to weather. I think it's Switzerland, wherever he is. In reality, I think it's because Prince Charles was there dealing with it directly. And the fact that Prince Charles has now broken the boycott of the royal family for official visits. First it was William, his son, in 2018 as the first official visit of a royal to the modern nation of Israel in its modern history. And then it was Prince Charles, who outranks William, of course, just this week. Or this past week, I guess now. At any rate, that says we're getting really close to things breaking loose and the treaty being made. And anybody who reads my book, The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea, will understand what that means. Really, really close. So I'm going to say also in relation to the modern international banking stuff that you brought up, Brooks, our modern international banking system traces historically to the Bank of England and the Bank of International Settlements.
That's true. Yeah, the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements, comes right from there.
Yeah, and the Bank of England is sitting beneath the British monarchy. And the Rothschilds and other very wealthy individuals who we really don't know how wealthy they are behind the scenes have been tied in all this time also with the Bank of England and the British monarchy. So again, all of these things trace literally to a Prince of Roman lineage, documented in The Antichrist and a Cup of Tea. And I see the stage set. And what's happening with North Korea and Iran, I don't think anybody, the globalists, I don't think they really want to see these wars happen. I don't think that they actually understand that by manipulating things in the way that they have, they are triggering these wars. And, with President Trump having the very best of motivations to try to squeeze North Korea and Iran with sanctions both to give up nuclear weapons, I think what's really going to occur is triggering the things that we most fear.
Yeah, because by the way, restart your video. But yeah, I get that because when force is applied to them, it's not their nature to knuckle under. It's not their nature to say, "Oh, I can't take this force anymore, so now I'm going to do what you asked me to do." It's going to be a way to resist it. It's going to be a way to fight back. And even sometimes they feel like, okay, we may lose ground at first, but they have a lot more to lose than we do. And so they may take the chance. I know that when Soleimani was made the trip into Baghdad, this was extremely high risk for him. This is a guy that knows he's been hunted since 1979, when he first took the U.S. Embassy and American hostages for 444 days. We've been hunting him, but he stays in Iran. He surrounds himself with children and hospitals, and he puts his office on the roof of a daycare center. We can't get to him. But when he came into Baghdad, just him and his entourage, it was to do no good. It was to plan something very big. We knew about it. And as soon as he ventured into Baghdad without his human shields, we took him out. We took him out within minutes. And the result was devastating. It basically cut the thinking head of confidence off of one of Iran's hydras. Mm-hmm. So it did a lot. It did a lot because Soleimani was a mastermind behind a lot of it, but it also let them know, if you venture outside of Iran, anywhere, we can get you, and we will, and we're watching you. And it sent a message to everybody. You remember when Pelosi and Schiff, as soon as they got permission, they flew over to Jordan to meet with King Hussein. And they tried to get King Hussein to make a public statement that he condemned President Trump withdrawing the troops from that certain area in Turkey. Well, King Hussein refused to do it. He said, no, that's actually a good idea. Get the American troops out of there. So they met with a courier, and they sent the courier. Off he went, but he didn't know he was being followed. The courier led the team directly to Baghdadi. As soon as the courier made contact with Baghdadi, the plans were made to go get him in that compound, and within hours, or within 24 hours, 48 hours, it was done. That scared the hell out of Pelosi and Schiff, because they were just there. They just met with the courier. They just sent the message to him. Because remember, all the drugs and the drug money and everything's being distributed through ISIS that were in Syria, and they were being blocked from Turkey attacking them because the U.S. troops were in between them. Once we pulled the U.S. troops out from in between them, it let Turkey go in and take them out so that the refugees could return back across the border. So what they tried to do was make sure that their money trail was secure. Now, what scared Pelosi and Schiff was not the fact that Baghdadi was killed. It was the fact that the following Sunday morning, I don't know, 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning, Trump said, oh, by the way, we recovered a ton of intel from that compound. You know what that was, Tim? That was all the banking records, all the blackmail, all the accounts. Every bit of money that had been flowing back and forth is now in the hands of the Trump administration. And that is why Pelosi and Schiff initiated the impeachment. That's why they did it. Well,
Let me say there's a lot of laundering, including drug stuff, that's happened with Hezbollah, including on our own borders practically in Venezuela. Yeah, and so that's another money funnel, so to speak, for these folks. Hezbollah, of course, being closely tied in with Tehran and Syria, and more closely these days even with Turkey, actually. So I think they've got multiple routes, and I think the Trump administration has tried to act to cut as much of that off as possible. We just saw Hezbollah declared as a terrorist organization, even its so-called political side in Great Britain.
Powerful stuff.
Yeah, and both the United States and Israel have been encouraging the whole world to follow suit. Much of Europe has not done so yet. They're trying to distinguish between terrorist Hezbollah and so-called political Hezbollah, while Islamic terrorism is on the rise in Europe. So just crazy stuff. But yes, President Trump has been acting directly to try to bring a lot of that down.
Mm-hmm.
And that is certainly one of the reasons that he's so hated, and there's such an effort to try to remove him
maybe why he's
from office,
causing this to happen along your time schedule. Tim, it's been a total pleasure having you on the program. Can't believe an hour's already gone. We'll have you on again. Wow. The book I've got posted on a website, and we will have this again. Thank you so much for your input and for your great insight. I promise.
Thank
good
you.
things are
and may I
come of
just
this.
point people to Prophecy House, my website, when they have a chance, check it out, and the YouTube channel.
Prophecyhouse.com.
Which is, prophecyhouse.com, and then youtube.com/Timothy Cohen, Cohen, which is my pen name. So yes, thank you, Brooks. Pleasure being on with you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much, Tim. All right, that was Tim Huckabee. I'll pen name Tim Cohen. Check out his book. I've got it up there on the screen. It'll be linked in the notes for the YouTube. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you right after this. Tim's always a great guest. An hour goes so fast. It's unbelievable. It's like he's on 5 minutes and then he's gone. It's crazy. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. More X Squared Radio coming at you. We got one more hour to go. You YouTubers just hang out. Lots of great things happening as we go forward. Let's see. We got about 30 seconds left. So in the coming hour, we're going to talk a little bit about some space exploration stuff that's really exciting. Of course, the new Space Force logo is out, which I'm excited about. It smacks of Star Trek, which is pretty cool. I mean, just makes sense. Everything should fit together. Science fiction becomes science fact. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. This is the America Free Radio Studio here on the north part of Charlotte. Be right back.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
This is a Fox News alert, the sports world. Mourning the loss of a legend. I'm CJ Papa, Fox News. Kobe Bryant and his 13-year-old daughter Gianna died in a helicopter crash north of Los Angeles. Fox's Jessica Rosenthal has more from the crash site in Calabasas.
LA County Fire Chief Darrell Osby says they responded to a downed helicopter and brush fire in the hills of Calabasas here in West LA County. After putting out the fire, they searched the debris field and found everyone on board had died. LA County Sheriff Alex Villanueva confirmed.
We have a manifest that indicates that there was 9 people on board the aircraft. The pilot plus 8 individuals.
He would not confirm their identities, saying that's the job of the coroner. However, the NBA commissioner has confirmed Kobe Bryant was killed along with his 13-year-old daughter. The FAA is on scene. The NTSB will assist in the investigation as well. The National Weather Service says there were low clouds Sunday morning at the time of the crash, and while visibility was likely reduced, they had not issued a fog advisory. In Calabasas, Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
And people there rushing out to see what happened when they found out Kobe Bryant was involved. They were very upset.
We felt sick, like our stomach hurts. And we didn't, I feel bad for all my friends because that was like their role model.
Reaction swift. Tiger Woods, playing golf in San Diego on Sunday, said he worked out with Kobe Bryant. He calls it one of the most shocking and tragic days he's ever been a part of. And former President Barack Obama tweeting, Kobe was a legend on the court and just getting started. And what would have been a meaningful second act to lose Gianna even more heartbreaking to us as parents. A rocket attack on the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. A senior U.S. official confirms the rocket slams into the U.S. Embassy dining hall at about 7:30 local time. There, a State Department spokesperson tells Fox News they know of reports of rockets landing in the international zone. America is listening to Fox News.
You must unite what has been citizen.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
So glad you all could join us again. Final hour of X Squared Radio tonight here at the America Free Radio Studios. We are coming to you two ways tonight. One is through the Truth Frequency Radio Network, which is at tfrlive.com. If you're out there listening on the internet, thank you very much. If you're listening on iHeart or TuneIn or Orange or one of the other radio apps, thank you so much for being there. If you need to duck out and you want to listen by phone without having it impact your data rates, you can always listen at 641-793-7117, 641-793-7117. This way you can listen on your phone, doesn't impact your data rates, and it's crystal clear, so you can listen to it anytime. By the way, special thanks out there for Robin listening somewhere under the moon, and also for Jen out there listening. Thank you so much for being there. I can feel your presence. All you people in the chat room, there are almost too many to name. Jeremiah's out there. Of course, MG is there. Bruce, nice to have you there. Thank you so much. And Rob, great comments tonight. Hope I mentioned you enough times for your great ideas out there. Agatha, good to see you. Daniel, David, Danny. Oh, wow. There's just too many to name here. REM, whatever that is. Good to see you. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Don't forget to share and to turn your notifications on. That way, when we go live, you'll know it. Tell your friends about us, and let's see if we can get the number of live listeners up a little higher. All you really have to do is bring one friend next week, just one, and we can double the size of this audience, and it'll be really great. It'll be good for them because they'll have good knowledge. It'll be good for us because it helps us keep the lights on here at the studio. We're in our 15th year of X Squared Radio. We've grown so much since 2005. A lot of competition came into the market, but nobody does exactly what we do because, well, you know why. And you can always call in live. Our phone number is 213-233-3998, 213-233-3998. You can ask anything that you want. I don't screen the calls, so you could come in and ask me literally anything. If I don't really like it, I'm going to hang up on you. But we'll have a good discussion about anything. The phone lines are open for this final hour. When we listen to the universe, guess what happens? We hear things. And this has probably been happening for billions of years, for sure. The question is, what effect does the rippling of space-time have on consciousness? What do you think? Mysterious cosmic events might have ever so slightly stretched and squeezed our planet last week. Astronomers detected a split-second burst of gravitational waves. These are distortions in space-time, heavy, high-velocity, high-amplitude gravitational waves that come through space-time and ripple it, sort of like grabbing the edge of a bed sheet and giving it a yank. But researchers don't really know where this burst came from, and that's kind of odd because the gravitational wave signal was picked up by the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatories. We call them LIGOs. And it was picked up by the third observatory. Now, you know that I've been to the one in Hanford, Washington. I've been to the one in Livingston, Louisiana. Both of them are operational. Both of them are linked together through high-speed optical switching. We do this for two reasons. One is it allows us parallax. That is to say, if there's a gravitational wave that occurs in the universe, we can triangulate and we can find the source of it out there. The second thing that it does is it tunes out noise, earthquakes, wave crashing, trucks driving by, lightning strikes, because that doesn't happen simultaneously at both observatories. They're so far apart. So the curvature of the Earth gives us a kind of look out into the universe from different points in space, and the ability to tie these things together real time and synchronize the light sources so that we tune out all the noise between them means we should be able to locate the source. But now there's a third unit. There's a third unit, and yes, we're planning a visit to it this summer. So I will be probably the only talk radio host anywhere in the world that has been to all three observatories on the Earth. This is called the Virgo interferometer. Now, the burst only lasted for 14 milliseconds. As I said, these things come through very fast, probably 25 times the speed of light. So at that speed, it could be a very long wave, but it's going to go by very quickly. Why? Oh, why 25? Okay, yeah, I know 25 is supposed to be the speed of light is supposed to be the fastest thing in the universe. I understand that. But let me run this thought experiment by you, okay? If the sun were to suddenly blank out, or let's say some big screen went in front of the sun, at the sun, how long would it be before Earth would actually see the sun go out? Yes. Okay, approximately 8 minutes, right? At the speed of light, 93 million miles. It'd take about 8 minutes for the light to disappear. That's when we would see the sun for 8 minutes, even though the sun was gone, and we would still see its light. Now, let me ask you this question. Suppose the sun, and this is a thought experiment now, so it's not really going to happen in real life, but suppose the sun just disappeared, just got, sucked out of existence into another dimension. It disappeared from the center of our solar system. How long do you think it would be before Earth took off at a tangent to our orbit straight out into space? That's right. It would be almost instantaneous, about 25 times the speed of light. Once that link, that gravitational link between the sun and the Earth is cut, what happens is the Earth immediately begins to move out into space, out into the cold blackness of space. By the way, we would still see the sun's light for another 8 minutes, but we would not have the gravitational pull from the sun. So these gravitational waves come through space very, very quickly, and they cover a lot of ground, even with high amplitude. So in a way, this is just a blip on the detector but it's very significant. Because gravitational waves can be caused by the collision of massive objects like neutron stars or other black holes coming together in space, or quasars. Astronomers detected such gravitational waves from a neutron star collision way back in 2017 and from one in April of 2019. By the way, that's the one that caused them to win the Nobel Prize. But gravitational waves from collisions of such massive objects typically last longer. They take sometimes hours or sometimes days to complete because, neutron stars don't just collide. They kind of come together and they dance around each other and they go faster and faster and faster and faster, and then they coalesce. They come together. It can take hours for this to happen, and they can rotate around that center point very, very quickly, causing these mottled ripples through space-time. But this happened very quickly. This new signal, it wasn't a series of waves like we normally see, but it was a burst. And one more likely possibility is the short-lived burst of gravitational waves comes from a more transient event, such as a supernova explosion. This is the one of the steps in the life cycle, death cycle of a star. I've explained it before on this program, but stars put out light because two hydrogen protons come together and fuse. And when they fuse together, each proton has to lose a little bit of weight in order to come together to make helium. That little bit of weight loss times the speed of light squared is the amount of energy that's released. That's what we see coming at us from our sun, from this fusion reaction. But over time, what happens is the sun begins to run out of hydrogen. It has turned it all into helium, or it gets very close to it. Well, when these suns are very large, like at least 4 times the size of our sun or bigger in mass, the explosive force that's trying to blow the sun apart begins to lose the battle against gravity, and gravity begins to shrink that sun. It begins to press the mass of the sun into a smaller and smaller and smaller space. Well, as it does, the gravitational pull of each individual nucleus of helium becomes so powerful that the electrons can no longer stay in orbit around the nuclei. And one by one, the electrons begin to fall into the protons. And when they do, -1, +1, you add them together, you get 0, right? 0 is the neutron. That's where the neutrons come from. Neutrons come from protons and electrons being combined into one. At first, it happens slowly. 1 here, then 1 million, then 1 billion, then 1 trillion. But it gets to a point where the sun's mass crosses a threshold, and all of the electrons in the entire star fall into all the protons at one time. That causes a concussion, which we call a supernova. It blows the atmosphere, the corona, off that star. The pulse is so powerful, and it is so much X-ray energy, so much gamma ray energy, that it consumes all of the planets in that solar system, turns them all into pure energy, just like that. And the resulting energy release is so powerful that we can see it hundreds of thousands of light years away. Fortunately, we haven't had any of those happen in our local neighborhood because we wouldn't be here if it did. There aren't any stars of that size for at least 25 light years in any direction. Still, amount of radiation put out would be devastating all the way out as far as it could go. It would be traveling close to the speed of light. So it would take a long time to get here. It would take 25 years to get here. And in doing so, it creates a lot of new stars. A lot of new matter is created. And because it's all created at the same time, it may or may not be entangled. Now that becomes significant because We know that entangled particles, even if they're spread over infinite distances, when a particle of one part is switched or changed states, the other particle, not in that same effect, changes states at the same time. This is maybe how information transfers across the universe. It's maybe why Earth, from time to time, gets bathed in these powerful waves of information. And different consciousnesses respond to that information in different ways. Artists draw, musicians compose, architects build buildings, scientists create inventions or understand mathematics or chemistry, because this information is being poured out, and because of our own individual aptitude, we understand it differently, and so therefore we express it differently. Now there are 7 billion of us alive on the earth. These expressions are myriad. So when these short bursts happen, like these explosions, we think that they happen from these primal creative events, which we call supernovas. Another possibility is that the merging of two intermediate mass black holes caused the signal. This merging might not be like the coalescing of neutron stars, where the neutron stars kind of come together and coalesce. This could just be more like two amoebas coming together. Once the event horizons of each one is merged, then the singularities of both black holes become one, or at least they chase each other around on the inside of the event horizon. Merging neutron stars produce waves that last longer, 30 seconds to 30 days, and black holes, intermediate black holes, not supermassive spinning black holes, they might release a shorter, tighter sequence of waves. So LIGO came across the signal while specifically looking for such bursts, but that doesn't mean that what it found is an intermediate mass black hole merger, especially since LIGO hasn't yet released the exact structure of the signal. But it's coming, and I'm going to go visit this facility this summer. Interesting, when I visited the one in Hanford, Washington, Dr. Fred Robb told me that they're seeing particles pop into our dimension from other dimensions. That's very significant. That is a very significant discovery, that particles containing information are popping into our dimension from another dimension. It's also possible that it was noise, but not very likely, because it didn't occur at the other interferometers as well. All right, let's see. One other thing I wanted to talk about. What's in a name? There's a contest all the time when we come up with new space programs, especially rovers that we're going to put on other planets. I think it's pretty cool. NASA has chosen 9 finalists in the student naming contest for its next Mars Rover, which currently goes by the Bland Mars 2020, a reference to its launch window, which extends from July through August of this year, because Mars is close enough that it becomes economic to launch something at Mars. The space agency picked 3 submissions in each of the 3 age categories. And by the way, it's kindergarten through 4th grade, and then it's 5th grade through 8th grade, and then it's 9th grade to 12th grade. Pretty cool, huh? That's how they come up with the names. So the monikers and the students who propose them are this. This is for the new Mars Rover. Now, you don't have to vote. This is something that's done, by the agency itself. But this is what the names of these kids came up with. Okay, kindergarten through 4th grade. Oliver Jacobs of Virginia came up with the name Endurance. Huh? That's pretty good, isn't it? Endurance for the name of the rover. And, it actually would make good names for Mars missions. The mission itself. It's not going to be this little Orion capsule. No. We're not going to put, 7 guys or 4 guys and 3 girls in a capsule in a chair and leave them there for 6 months. That's not going to happen. It's going to be a big ship. They're going to be able to wander around and do all kinds of work and experiments, and they'll have safe rooms in them and maybe even artificial gravity rooms with some kind of spinning centrifugal force. Because in 7 months to Mars, by the time you get there, you're not going to be able to get up on your hands and knees and work, even though, you know, you're 68% less gravity than you have here. All right. Eamon Riley of Pennsylvania came up with this name. He's also kindergarten through 4th grade. Tenacity. That's a good one, isn't it? That's a good one. I could just see the teachers, you know, paring these names down on the chalkboard or the whiteboard one by one until finally all the kids say, I really like that name. Amira Shanshiri of Massachusetts, also K through 4, came up with this name, Promise. That's pretty cool, isn't it? Promise. 5th through 8th grade, Alexander Mather of Virginia. Perseverance. It's a good one. It's a good one. Hadley Green of Mississippi, also 5th through 8th grade. Vision. Now, I'm partial to this. I've had 2 companies named Vision. I've had Vision Airways, which was a freight airline, and I had Vision Motorcars, which was an electric truck company. Yeah, pretty cool. Let's see. Nora Benitez of California, 5th through 8th grade, came up with the name Clarity. Clarity. 9th through 12th grade, Vanessa Rupani of Alabama, Ingenuity. I like that. Names are getting better. Although, you know, K through 4, good names. Anthony Yoon of Oklahoma. This is the high schoolers, 9 through 12, came up with the name Fortitude. Now, there's a winner, right? That's a good one. Fortitude is a good name for a rover. And Tori Gray of Louisiana, the final one of the 9 through 12, came up with the name Courage. So there you have the 9 names: Endurance, Tenacity, Promise, Perseverance, Vision, Clarity, Ingenuity, Fortitude, Courage. I remember Opportunity and Spirit. Those were good rovers. All right. Public input is one criterion NASA will use to pick the final name, and the agency is therefore encouraging folks to vote for their favorite online. What you have to do, and I'll put the link in my description right down here because I want you to participate. It is at go.nasa.gov, and then you put in /name 2020. But you got to act fast because the voting closes at midnight, January 28th. Yeah, so you got 2 days to get your votes in. After the poll closes, the 9 student finalists will discuss their rover names with a panel, including the Planetary Science Division Director, Lori Glaze, NASA astronaut Jessica Watkins, NASA JPL rover driver Nick Wiltsey, and Clara Ma, who earned the honor of naming the Mars rover Curiosity as a 6th grade student in 2009. So the contest will conclude in early March when the rover's new name and the student behind it are announced. Grand prize winner will also receive an invitation to see the spacecraft launch in July of 2020 from Cape Canaveral Air Force Station in Florida. The car-sized Mars 2020 is scheduled to touch down inside the 28-mile, 45-kilometer Jezero crater in February of 2021. The rover will do a variety of work on the red planet, including hunt for signs of ancient life, test out each tech that could aid human exploration, and collect a cache of samples for future return to Earth. The student naming contest is a long-standing tradition. Kids have named all of NASA Mars rovers: Sojourner, which launched in 1996, Spirit and Opportunity, which lifted off in 2003, and Curiosity, which landed on Mars in 2012 and continues to work there today. I think it would be pretty cool. It's a great thing to put on your resume, so I would encourage you to vote for your favorite rover. It's not that easy to do. You know, we put several up there successfully, and many countries have tried to put them just on the moon. India, you'll remember, tried to put their rover on the moon recently, and we've talked about this, the Chandrayaan 2. It was their first moon landing attempt, though it ended with an unintentional crash landing, was a tremendous accomplishment for the ISRO. The Chandrayaan 2 mission, which consists of an orbiter, the Vikram lander, and a rover named Pragyan, may not be able to study the lunar surface up close, but the orbiter will continue to study it from afar for years to come. Meanwhile, ISRO engineers are studying what went wrong with the Chandrayaan 2 landing to help improve the design of India's next moon landing attempt. Sorry, got the hiccups for some reason. Yeah, I find it interesting. You know, that Indian approach was a little different. What they did is they launched their system into orbit around the Earth. It went around Earth for about a week, and then it left Earth's orbit, went to the moon, orbited around the moon, and then dropped the rover or the lander to the surface where it splatted. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spotted the debris from the splat and the soil disturbance, which it left a little bit of a mark on the ground. It was a very hard impact. They're trying to figure out what went wrong, but the mishap occurred in the very final phase of Vikram's descent, when a problem with the spacecraft's braking thrusters forced it to make a hard landing about 500 meters from its target landing site, according to a statement from Jitendra Singh. We'll be right back after this. Don't go away. Quick break.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Do you have any of these symptoms? Night cramps in the hands and feet. Your arms and legs often go to sleep. On short walks, do your legs get aches and pains? Is your memory worse than it used to be? Ankles that swell late in the day? Has your blood pressure increased lately? If you answered yes to even one of these questions, you may have early warning signs of arterial blockages. Your body is saying that it is time to take Extendivite. These are not the normal signs of aging. They are the warning signs that accompany blocked arteries. Get your Extendivite today. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Dowsing is the ancient science of finding water and metal underground. Albert Einstein said that dowsing was tapping into earth energies which modern science as yet does not understand. Diamonds, silver, gold, and platinum objects have all been found using dowsing. And now, for the first time on film, we visit the pyramids, Stonehenge, and ancient sites, dowsing for buried treasure and tapping into this mysterious earth energy.
The Enigma Channel. Intelligent television for planet Earth. EnigmaTV.com.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR Frequency Radio.
I've been waiting for this moment since my first breath in. Never would have thought I'd be afraid to begin, but here I am, the edge of the water, wondering if I can swim. Never seem to notice all the days pass through, but in this final moment I'm still chasing the truth. I want an explanation why I can't stay here forever in my youth. And if I press on, will you wait? Will you wait for me forever? Or would it be wrong to ask you to come with? Tell me, will you wait?
Thanks so much for being part of X Squared Radio tonight. We're sitting peacefully in the America Free Radio studio somewhere east of the Appalachian Mountains, coming through two ways, through the Truth Frequency Radio Network and also through YouTube Live. So thankful for your presence out there. Just keep the comments coming. We're talking about all the names the kids came up with for the Rovers. Other names like Miss Puddle Pants. I don't think that one's going to make it, MG. I'm just telling you right now. I'm not on the committee, but I don't think that one's going to get. I like Daedalus. Daedalus would be cool, you know, from the movie Space Cowboys. I just thought it was a cool name. So a lot of people wondering, you know, what went wrong. Indians are smart guys. You know, they went over the math a million times. ISRO now faces the challenge of fully re-simulating Vikram's landing using received telemetry and tracking data. It's not that easy to do, you know, just to get all the way there and then make that last mistake. And, you know, the mechanical electronic systems, as well as the vibration, the shock, the thermal effects on the spacecraft subsystems during the braking phases. The telemetry data, when analyzed in time sequence for the state of health of each subsystem, will provide detailed timelines of both planned and unplanned events during the crash. Now, there's something that you probably need to take into consideration. I'm not part of the team. I'm just saying, if some of the team is listening tonight, you know, one of the reasons that it's hard to land robotic things on the moon is because the gravitational field of the moon is very anomalous. You can't just look at the moon and say, oh, the gravity's 1/6 that of Earth and plan everything around that. It's not that simple. The moon has been struck by lots and lots of meteors and asteroids. And although they leave craters, those massive impacts are sitting underneath the surface. And where they sit, they create gravity anomalies. That is to say, the density of the asteroid sitting under the surface of the moon has a much higher gravitational pull than the rest of the moon itself. And so you have an inconsistent gravitational field around the moon. So just say, oh, we're going to go up there and we'll make, this burn for 60 seconds or this turn for 4 minutes or, whatever. It doesn't work all the time because you have to compensate for all the speed bumps in the gravitational field on the moon. I'm not saying that it can't be done remotely, but that's why, the pilots were able to land Eagle landers on the moon, because they practiced hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times landing in all kinds of conditions. And when you have the human hand on that joystick, you can make subtle adjustments, whatever it takes, with thrust and direction of the thrusts in order to get the craft in the right position. There may be a way of looking at the moon, either with visual systems or with laser systems. You can't use ultrasonics, doofus, because there's no air on the moon for the ultrasonics to work. Okay, it's got to be radio, or it's got to be laser, or it's got to be visual, and that's how you can tell which way the craft is moving and make your subtle adjustments. Anyway, the analysis would include controlled start of the descent stage, the 12 minutes of data transmitted before the communication was lost, which was done obviously when it struck the ground going 1,000 miles an hour or whatever it was, even 200 miles an hour is a heck of an impact. The first glitch probably triggered some anomalies related to subsystems and thruster control that amplified and led to the mishap in the final 2 kilometers. So learn from Vikram's mistakes and maybe add more retro rockets. This is their first experience using liquid propulsion-based retro rockets to slow down a speeding lander. Liquid would be probably in the form of liquid hydrogen and oxygen being combined. We call that boom gas. I'm going to go meet with a company in April that makes rockets like that, retro rockets like that, because this company is developing asteroid mining equipment. And hopefully when I make my presentation in May at Contact in the Desert, they're going to either let me show pictures, or if they're really trusting with me, give me one of the retro rockets so I can hold it up over my head or show it on a bench in the big room, because this is real stuff, real asteroid mining. We're not talking about the moon or Mars. We're talking about beyond Mars in the asteroid belt. And the reason is, I'm glad you asked that question, but the reason is because there's money in them that are asteroids. One asteroid could return $100 billion or more. There are asteroids that are solid or largely platinum, rhodium, metals that are very rare on this planet, very plentiful in one chunk in an asteroid. There are also asteroids that are largely ice, frozen ocean sitting there. And you might think, oh, gee, what do we need that for? Well, you need that in space in order to create more fuel. So in essence, the asteroids become gas stations for deep space exploration, or exploration of Mars, or exploration of what we call the cis-Mars area. This is the area between our moon and Mars, which, with our current technology on the short end, 4 months. On the long end, 7 to 9 months with our current technology. With space-designed technology, ion drives and things that we really haven't tried in space, we've tried them, on a CubeSat size, but not on a big enough size like you would find on the back of the Millennium Falcon or the back of a Star Destroyer. Something big to be able to put a stream of ions out the back that would create significant thrust from nothing more than microwaves bouncing around in a chamber and drawing particles into our dimension from another dimension, charging those particles and forcing them out the nozzle for thrust. I'm what? I'm determined. Yes, I am determined. We're going to make it there. I don't know if I'll get to go to the asteroids, but I can guarantee you that Earth is going to mine asteroids. I've been on this since 1968. That's a long, long time. And when you put your thought on something for that long, you can think of all kinds of solutions. Well, I am getting ready to go share those solutions with one of the 6 companies that are developing the asteroid mining equipment. And we can learn from missions like the Vikram, and we can learn from the mishaps of the Chandrayaan-2. But eventually, we're going to have to be able to hop off the moon and into deep space. It reminds me of what Neil Armstrong did during the Apollo program while practicing at piloting the lunar module. On May 6, 1968, Armstrong bailed out during a test flight of the Lunar Landing Research Vehicle when he lost control of the craft. He ejected himself and narrowly avoided a fiery explosion. Since the ISRO's lander is not crewed, there's no person in it to make these adjustments. Similar atmospheric effects are to be accounted for, as was done for the Apollo lunar module test. With ISRO's strong track record of launching successful space missions, it's safe to say that the proposed lander can be ready to launch in about a year with most of the same but well-tested hardware. With some modified communication control and guidance systems. I'm having some video feed to YouTube that may show up as a little anomaly, but hang in there. It'll clear itself up. We've been having trouble with the modem connection lately. We're connected to the internet via cable, and it's an older neighborhood, so we struggle with this all the time. Hopefully you're still getting the audio just fine. The other thing that I would like to talk about tonight, let's see here, is what's been happening subtly in the news, but in the next week or so, you're going to see some more headlines on this. And that is weighing the anchor on the anchor baby business. The Trump administration has issued a new rule, and these rules go through a process in the agencies. Once the rule is proposed, then it goes through all kinds of vetting inside the agency. It gets posted in the Federal Register. The public can then respond. If there are enough comments, then the administration has to respond. And eventually it turns into what's called the final rule. And the final rule is law. It has the force of law. But they've issued a new rule that would allow the State Department to reject visa applications from women who it believes want to travel to the U.S. strictly for the purpose of having a baby on American soil. The rule to crack down on what is called birth tourism took place 2 days ago. So it's going to be in the news this next week. You're going to see this massive opposition to it, but I want to give you the facts so that you know what's going on. Last year, officials announced and charged 20 people in connection with various schemes that coached Chinese women on how to come to America to have children who would then become citizens by virtue of being born in the U.S. This is how Kamala Harris became a U.S. citizen. Her Jamaican father and Indian mother, neither one of which were U.S. citizens, had a baby in California. They did not stay married, and the mother took Kamala out of the United States at age 8. They went to Canada, where she stayed and taught until Kamala was of college age. Then Kamala came back to California and went to college there. She was a U.S. citizen because she was born here, but she was an anchor baby from non-citizen parents. And now, well, she's not running for president now, but now she's an elected senator. And now she's making a decision on whether the president of the United States gets to stay in office or not. This is the problem that we have. When you have an anchor baby that's born here, they have an allegiance to their actual country of origin. It's worse with Kamala Harris because she went to Canada and became a young adult there and then came back to the United States. The problem is that if Kamala Harris ever did become president, and if, God forbid, we ever went to war with India or with Jamaica, like we'd go to war with Jamaica, or with Canada, we don't know which country her allegiance would lie with. And that's the problem. That's why this was set up. We don't even know really how anchor baby business got started or why it was, even without law, even without a Supreme Court decision, decided that just because you're born in this country, you're automatically a citizen of this country. So these 20 people were charged with setting this kind of illegal business up. Officials said in one scheme known as You Win USA, each mother was charged between $40,000 and $80,000. The scheme brought more than 500 pregnant women to the U.S., according to the Justice Department news release. What's 500 times 80,000? Yeah, it's a serious amount of money, folks. A serious amount of money. Talking about $40 million. America's way of life is not for sale, Joseph Macias, or should I say Macias, maybe, M-A-C-I-A-S, special agent in charge of the Homeland Security Investigations, L.A. He says, and I quote, "The rule change is necessary to enhance public safety, national security, and the integrity of our immigration system." This is White House Press Secretary Stephanie Grisham. She said 3 days ago, "The birth tourism industry threatens to overburden valuable hospital resources and is rife with criminal activity, as reflected in federal prosecutions. Closing this glaring immigration loophole will combat these endemic abuses and ultimately protect the United States from national security risks created by this practice. Permitting short-term visitors with no demonstrable ties to the United States to obtain visas to travel to the U.S. primarily to obtain U.S. citizenship for a child creates a potential long-term vulnerability," because we're not talking about just the baby. Okay? Foreign governments or entities, including entities of concern to the United States, may seek to benefit from birth tourism for the purposes that would threaten the security of the United States. How does that happen? Well, the rule doesn't ban pregnant women from traveling to the United States, nor does it ban pregnant women from getting visas. However, it does require pregnant women seeking tourist visas to prove to officials that birth tourism is not their intent. This rule establishes that travel to the United States with the primary purpose of obtaining U.S. citizenship for a child is impermissible. Okay, it's not going to happen. And not everyone's happy about this. There's huge money in this industry, as you can imagine. And that money goes to fund many political campaigns. And those politicians are pissed that Trump has found their golden goose and cooked it. Trump continues to find new ways to try to divide and attack families. Adrian Reyna, this strategy director, blah, 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 discriminating against pregnant individuals by blocking them from coming to visit the country does nothing but keep people from their loved ones. Yes, and here's what we're talking about. The truth outlined in the new rule defines a stark difference between aliens using a temporary visa for the purpose of obtaining U.S. citizenship for their kids and the extensive requirements applicants must meet to naturalize to become U.S. citizens. They don't have to do any of that because they were born here. The issue happens that once these kids are citizens of the United States, later in life, they come back to the United States claiming that citizenship. And then the rest of it starts because they exploit the loopholes in the immigration system. An entire birth tourism industry has evolved to assist not only the pregnant women from coming to this country and having their kids, but then the kids can return to the country and then through chain migration ask for the parents of those kids to come along with them. And then, of course, the grandparents and the cousins and the uncles and aunts. And what you have is one child bringing in dozens or sometimes hundreds of people. Birth tourism companies advertise their businesses abroad by promoting the citizenship-related benefits of giving birth in the United States. Those parents are charged enormous fees to transport pregnant women here, specifically so they can be born in America. Companies tout a broad range of benefits for the U.S. citizen child and eventually its family, including but not limited to access to free education, less pollution, retirement benefits, the ability to compete for jobs in the U.S. government, and the ability for the whole family to eventually immigrate to the United States through chain migration. The policy that allows a child to be born here to instantly be classified a U.S. citizen is ending. That's the news that will hit next week. Chain migration will end shortly thereafter. And this is long overdue to close this loophole in the broken U.S. immigration system. I trust that you are sympathetic to this, and I believe that we're moving in the right direction. I do have a caller, been sitting out there for about 6 minutes down in Texas. We have about 5 minutes left. Texas, what's on your mind?
I was just calling bring everybody's attention to the stock market. I was just looking at it on my phone, and it looks like everything is down. And, you know, I feel like when a lot of these things happen with superstars passing, you know, it's the powers that be's way of trying to distract us from something that's more important on a global scale. So I just wanted to call in and, you know, just throw that out there. And, you know, maybe other people have a little bit more information on that than I do, but it was just something I noticed.
So what do you think is causing the stock market to go down? By the way, it's Sunday night here at the studios, but the pre-position, that is to say orders to sell stock, are going to force the price of the stock down when the market opens at 9 o'clock in the morning. What do you think is causing it?
Maybe it was something that was preconceived before this. Maybe it was like a forecast that they knew it would fall at this point because we're coming out of season of like Christmas, New Year's, Super Bowl's coming up. So maybe this is a down season. So, you know, even with the Kobe Bryant thing, that could even be a ploy as well to get people to go out and buy and, you know, kind of want to take more care of their families, go grocery shopping, you know, buy those little things just to make sure they have them type of thing. You know, I don't know. You know, it's just all.
Well, you know, it could be
ideas.
It could be. You know, a lot of this buy low, sell high. Sometimes what they'll do is they'll come out and manipulate the market. The computer traders will do a head fake, and they'll force the market down so that these big hedge funds can buy in, and then by Friday it goes back up again, and they make $1 billion. It could be that.
Exactly. Yeah, it could be that as well. Yeah, I just was scrolling through it and I noticed and I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. Everything's down but Boeing, on the front page. And I just was like, that's pretty interesting.
That is.
Just wanted to call in and chime in with everybody and see what y'all thought about that. But, yeah, man, RIP to Kobe Bryant and his daughter. And,
it's a tragedy, a lot of people don't realize that, Kobe travels.
To cut you off, but I definitely think a lot of these people know what they're signing up for. No offense to him. I'm not trying to be rude or disrespectful to his death. But, I guess that's the game, when you take that oath. You can't even save yourself to an extent, because you already took that oath. So, they get the fame, they get the lifestyle, they get the glitz and the glam. But at the end of the day, when it's their time, who can they call to save them? Who can they call to have their back?
That's right.
Being in the club.
That's right.
Like they say, playing reindeer games. But yeah, man. And I never knew what that meant as a kid. I would always hear that in movies, playing reindeer games. But then you think about the elks and the lodges, and it's like slang, reindeer games. And I'm like, that's pretty interesting. That's funny that they did that to us. They've been putting that in our face since we were, children, but we didn't even know what they were talking about. But, yeah, man, you have a great day, and I just want to chime in on that.
All right. I appreciate it so much. Call back again when you have more time. I'm interested in your thoughts. Thanks for calling.
Oh, no, definitely. Thank you.
All right. Earth Explorers. We got about a minute and a half left. Somebody in the chat room said, turn off the top chat. Turn off top chat to live chat so you can see every message. Well, I have it on live chat. I'm not on top chat. I can see all the messages. There are just so many that I can't read them because they're like way over there. And I'm looking at this screen right here. So I have two screens. So I am on live chat. I'm not on top chat. I don't have anybody that's contributed any money here for a couple of weeks. So no big deal. I do want you to go out and look for the good in people and help it to grow a little bit every day. We have started the Roaring 20s. And I can tell you right now that if you don't have your goals written down for 2020, you're probably not going to accomplish them. If you want to learn how to do that, part of my webinar on success mentoring is journaling, how to create a journal, the rules for filling out a journal. And trust me, it's very helpful. You won't accomplish anything if you don't write these things down. It becomes a random crap shoot. And I appreciate all the people in the TFR chat room and also in the YouTube chat room. Thank you for being part of the program tonight. This is X Squared Radio. My name is Brooks Agnew, saying peace, Earth Explorers. Do your best this week. We'll see you on Wednesday right here at 8 p.m. on YouTube Live. Thanks so much.
Oh!